Hello, welcome to Biblio Files, the little show on AADL TV where we take a few moments each week to discuss one book topic. My name is Amanda and I'm joined as always with Christopher and Lucy. And this week we are discussing some really great thrillers. So are you ready to be thrilled? I am. All right, Christopher, thrill me.
Well, I chose a book that I read some time ago. It's Patricia Highsmith's The Talented Mr. Ripley that came out in 1955. I love this book so much. While I was reading it, I got so anxious and so paranoid. I felt like I was in the book myself. The basic plot is Tom Ripley is sent to Italy to retrieve the son of a businessman. And when Ripley gets there, he starts to fall in love with this son's lifestyle, his glamour, his fun-loving party living, his girlfriend, and possibly even him, the son himself. So Ripley starts to weave a web of lies. He becomes so obsessed with this son, and the son finally decides to kind of cast him aside and get rid of him because he's tired of this parasite living in his house. So the lies compound. There are some murders, and the reader is really not sure whether they're rooting for Ripley to succeed or whether they realize he's such a sociopath that they really want him to be caught. So it's a great, thrilling, gripping, anxiety-provoking story that I really loved. You might remember Patricia Highsmith also wrote Strangers on a Train. She's really a master of this genre. The movie is also wonderful. And sometimes we talk about movies on the show. I just wanted to give a nod to that as well. So
Is Matt Damon in the movie?
That's right. And Philip Seymour Hoffman. So that is The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. Lucy, what did you read for this episode?
The book that I chose for this episode is called If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And this is a literary thriller. I would also classify it as like dark academia, which is a genre that I really love. And it's about a group of 7 theater students. They're in their final year at this small, rigorous, elite fine arts college in Illinois. And there's only 7 of them in the final year because the program is so difficult that people keep dropping out. So they're just a really close-knit group, and they only perform Shakespeare. All 4 years in this theater program, it's only Shakespeare that's performed. The book is narrated by one of the 7 named Oliver Marks, and we start the book with him just getting out of prison 10 years after the events in the book. So you know that there's a crime that happened in the book. You know that Oliver, it was a murder, and you know that he may or may not have committed it, but you don't know why. You don't know when, you don't know who else was involved. So it's sort of that backwards mystery. Like you get this little snippet in front, and then you're going to go back and get the whole story of the time when that happened. So because they only study Shakespeare, there's a lot of Shakespeare in the book, which I really liked. All 4 years they're studying it. In the 4th year, they're doing tragedies. And, this is full of, these are like love, loss, jealousy, betrayal, violence, all these things that are happening in Shakespeare start to sort of creep into the student's life. And because they study so much Shakespeare, they speak to each other in Shakespeare sometimes. And there's this line that gets crossed, like it's hard to know if Shakespeare's motivating them or if it's allowing them to, exhibit behaviors that are already there. So I think that Shakespeare is used really, really well in this book, sort of this question of like, is life imitating art, or is the art sort of giving them license to behave in a different way? And the students always sort of get typecast in the same roles, like the temptress, the villain, the ingenue, until the final year when things start to get shaken up. And that is what creates some unrest amongst them, is that they're not getting cast in their usual roles. So if you like Shakespeare, this is a really cool book to read. If you're not familiar with Shakespeare, it's also interesting because the language, it sort of normalizes Shakespeare. You see how the words in Shakespeare can be applied to real life situations. And I loved that about it. So of course I would pick a book that also is like about books and plays because that's just me. But it is page turning. It is a thriller. I read it in about a day and a half. And if you like dark academia, like those kind of books, like Secret History, this is a great one. And it has an excellent twist at the end. I'm not going to give anything away, but you're so rewarded, by this or kind of just like, So I highly recommend it. I had a lot of fun reading it. So that's my thriller. Amanda, what did you pick?
Well, before I go into mine, I don't really think I knew that dark academia was a subgenre. So that's pretty thought provoking right there. And also the books you guys have both mentioned so far mentioned like anxiety producing or like page turning, thrilling, can't put the book down. And those are some of the things that just like equal the definition of what is a thriller, like something, not all of them have to be dark or spooky. They can err more on like the espionage side or the mystery side, but they also have the element of like, what's going to happen next? And then you turn the page. And also, Lucy, you referenced a good twist ending, and the book I chose has a great ending. The book I chose for this week is called Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. And he has a few other thrillers under his belt. There's one called Final Girls, which is one of his more popular ones that people seem to love. This book was published in 2020, and it is a page turner, and it also features a haunted house. So it's got that spooky element to it. So 25 years ago, a 5-year-old girl named Maggie and her parents lived in Bainbury Hall, this huge old house in Bainbury. And after being there for only 20 days, they flee in the dead of night and they never return. The house becomes famous. The father writes a best-selling book called The House of Horrors. So the book becomes famous. The family becomes very well known. The house becomes well known. And so does the town of Bainbury. And the residents are not happy. It just puts so much spotlight on the town and the house. So flash forward to 25 years later, where adult Maggie is now a restorer of old homes, and circumstances lead her back to going into Bainbury for the first time since she was a child. Also, she has no recollection of what happened there as a kid. All of those memories are erased. The only memories, or quote unquote memories, she has are things that she read in her father's book. She's read the book many, many times, but now as an adult, she wants nothing to do with that godforsaken book. She wants nothing to do with it. It's been this horrible dread in her life, is talking about the book and talking about the house. She can't escape it. But now as an adult, she has to go back there, and things start happening in the home. So the way the book is set up, it's alternating chapters between present day Maggie as an adult, the circumstances of why she ends up back in the home, and then being in the house and things start happening, and her sort of piecing together things of figuring out, well, what was real, what actually happened. And she slowly starts to remember things. So it alternates between her in present day with actual chapters from her father's book. And her father's book is in order. So you're sort of reading two different stories, but of course it's the same story. So Maggie's finding and doing things in the home that are sort of related to the passages that are in the book. So it's very well timed how the chapters alternate. I just thought it was really well done. I had a great time with it. I read it in a couple sittings. It was totally a book I didn't want to put down. I super had a lot of fun with it. I've already grabbed a couple other books by this author that I want to read. And I don't remember how this book came to me. I think it was on some list in the summer. And I said, oh, that sounds great. That'll be great to read in October. And I put it on my list. And then when we were doing thrillers for the show, I thought, I'm going to save it and read it for the show. And I did. And it's so much fun. I highly recommend it. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. And I can't speak to the other books, but they have really great reviews for people who like that style of book. So I highly recommend just grabbing something by him and going at it. Now, as far as spookiness, does have that spooky horror, like haunted house feel, but it's not like gross and disturbing. It just has that perfect blend of like mystery and thriller and spooky and like creaks and cracks and mysterious things coming on. So I had a great time with this book. And I don't read a lot of thrillers. So Lucy, Christopher, do you guys have any other final thoughts on thrillers?
Well, your book sounds like the recent Netflix shows based on haunted houses.
Yeah,
That's
So
what I
do
was thinking.
Yeah, it had some of those visuals. And I actually watched a few movies recently also about haunted houses or things happening in haunted homes. So it was great timing. And so it kind of has a similar kind of vibe. It's not as creepy as Hill House, sadly, but I still had a good time with it. Well, there we are. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, I think it's interesting that we all picked, they're kind of like, there's a psychological thriller element to all the books that we picked. And a little bit of like unreliable narrating. So it's just kind of interesting that we, out of all the different types of thrillers, these 3 books are very different, but they all seem to have that thrilling part of them. That's all.
Wonderful. All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Bibliophiles. If you have read a really great thriller or an author who writes great thrillers, let us know. We'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. Go ahead and click the link below and it'll take you to the library's website where this event node lives. So that's it for this week. Please join us again next time. Take care.